Hello, it's Sammy. I'm here with my co-host Taylor, and we're recording the Les and a Half podcast. Are you excited, Taylor? Oh, she's already drinking. No, don't do that! Anyways.
Hello, I'm Cher Horowitz.
And I'm the Black Canary.
And you're watching and or listening to our first ever No Pants podcast.
Brought to you by Les and a Half.
Alright, so for today's video we're going to be reading spooky stories. And we have a few here. I printed mine out because I didn't want to use my phone. Although I will need to use my phone because we had Ashton sent me one. So we'll share that one.
Yeah, boy.
Do you want to get started?
Yeah, you can go first if you
Okay,
want.
sweet. This one, you might have heard it already, but it's called The Smiling Man. So I'll see if we can do it justice. Okay, there's actually also, we'll find the link to add to it because there's a short film about the Smiling Man after the story became popular. Are you ready? Let's get
spoopy.
Get spoopy. Okay. The story of the Smiling Man is quite an unsettling one. This modern urban legend surfaced on the web about 2 years ago. The first sighting was posted on Reddit by a presumably young man whose name we don't know. This reportedly happened in 2011 and is a basic recounting of this young man's experience. In his account of the story, the young man states that at the time he was living in a major metropolitan city, it seems that it is now known that the city in question is Seattle. So Seattle. Ooh. He describes himself as a night owl and says that he had gotten into the habit of frequently taking walks at night to pass the time and to clear his head. He had done this for close to 4 years and never had an issue, not even in the twilight hours. This is despite the fact that he lived in a major city. The encounter happened on a quiet night in the street, and the young man was walking on what was basically an empty road devoid of cars and other people. He had already been out walking for some time, so he decided it was about time to turn around and start heading home. It was as he was turning around when he first saw the silhouette of a stranger who appeared to be dancing. More specifically, he looked like he was waltzing. At the same time, he was slowly edging his way towards the younger man. Every 3 or 4 steps of the stranger's dance was punctuated with 1 step towards the storyteller. The young man decided that the stranger was probably drunk, and so he gave the drunk stranger a wide berth and moved to the very edge of the sidewalk to avoid any interaction. As the stranger's silhouette became more and more visible in the dim city streets, the young man realized that this odd stranger was actually moving very gracefully, almost like he was a trained dancer, and was unlikely to be inebriated. He noted that the stranger was unusually tall and lanky and was wearing a faded suit. As this tall stranger came closer still, he stepped under a street lamp, and the young man finally caught a proper glimpse of his face. His head was tilted backwards, his eyes were wide open, looking upwards at the sky, and he had an unnaturally large, cartoonish grin on his face. The young man, clearly and very understandably unsettled by this odd stranger, decided to cross the street to avoid getting too close to this clearly deranged-looking man. He crosses the street, and when he gets to the other side, he takes a glance back and finds the stranger gone. For a moment, the young man is relieved, but he spots the stranger again out of the corner of his eye on the other side of the street, directly opposite him. With the same expression, eyes wide open, head tilted upward, ghoulish smile on his face. The young man starts to panic. He starts walking at a brisk pace, all the while keeping his eyes on the stranger, who doesn't move from the spot that he's standing. The young man glances forward only momentarily to get his bearings, and when he looks behind himself again, he sees that the smiling man is looking straight at him from a crouch. The two of them are now on the same side of the street again. The young man is shocked at how fast the smiling man seems to move. He stands there in shock. The smiling man starts to tiptoe with large steps, like the ones the cartoon characters do when they're trying to sneak around, except in this case the stranger's moving fast. For whatever reason, the storyteller doesn't just get the fuck out. He stands there and tries to scare the smiling man off by swearing at him, but apparently he was so tense that barely any sound escaped his throat. The smiling man at this point is a half a block away from the storyteller, still smiling and half gazing at the sky with his head tilted backwards. At this point, he slowly turned around and started dancing away, moving in the same way as he did before. The young man watched him intently, and as he faded into the The young man watched him intently, and as he faded into the distance, as he faded into the distance. Sorry, guys.
We've been drinking.
Yeah. Just as his pulse was finally starting to slow down, he sees the distant silhouette getting larger and larger. The smiling man is not dancing anymore. He's running straight towards the young man. At this point, the young man basically bolts. He runs as fast as he can to an area where there are more people and some car traffic. He gets home safely, but he says he no longer enjoys taking walks alone at night.
I've never heard that story
No.
before. And now I really want to watch the video that goes with it, because
Yeah.
that's
spooky. That sounds like it would be a decent thing to see, like,
Yeah.
visually.
Yeah.
So we'll tag
I mean,
the video
not
below.
actually to
No,
experience.
not at all.
But like someone that made a short film. We'll tag the short film below.
My first tale that I will tell
Yes.
will be the one that happened to me personally. So it was around 2008, 2009, and I was it was about 2008, 2009, and I was working at Wendy's at the time. This was before I joined the military, and I had a roommate in an apartment. It was a really long day, really stressful day. And I came home and I looked at my roommate and I said, "Hey, you want to go on a road trip?" And he was like, "What? Where?" I was like, I don't know, anywhere." So I Googled stuff nearby, and the Lincoln National Forest, which I had never heard of before this moment, was maybe like 2-3 hour drive away. And so I was like, all right, let's hop in the car. Let's just go check out this national forest for funsies. I don't have to work tomorrow. Let's see what happens. And so it was probably about midnight when we left. And so we start driving towards the forest. As we get about halfway there, it starts to rain. And we make our way, because you enter the forest and the way it's laid out is it's almost like a canyon. So you have to go up and up and up all these hills, and then you like dip down into the forest. Mm-hmm. And so we're like going up and up, and it starts raining so bad I can't see anything. So we decided, you know what, forget it. Let's just go back home. The weather has decided this adventure is not for us. And when we turn around into a lookout point, and so we get out and we're just kind of glancing across the way, like across the canyon to the other side where the other mountains are. Just checking it out, and we see, I was like, oh man, that's crazy. You can see those car lights from all the way over here. Man, that's weird. And I'm like watching these car lights, and at one point I realized that they're not really going straight. They start going like backwards and also up and down. And it's in that moment I realized I was looking at aliens.
Oh my god.
Aliens! And I was like, wait, no. Am I going crazy? And so I asked my roommate, and I was like, dude, like, there's no way those are cars. Yeah. There's no way. Like, the angle at which they're going down, that can't be a road. The lights are facing towards us, that can't be a road. So I tried to record it, and this was 2009, so camera phones are terrible. And even then, it was raining and it was nighttime, so I couldn't get any actual evidence. And I don't know if my roommate was as convinced as I was that it was aliens, but I am pretty solidly convinced to this day that I saw a UFO at the Lincoln National Forest. Oh, should have mentioned this at the beginning. The Lincoln National Forest is in New Mexico. So, aliens.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's my personal little...
Aliens are real. Sammy just proved it.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
I saw them with my own very defective eyeballs.
Listen, I'm a good witness.
That does not support your evidence. with my defective
Look at how
eyeballs.
blind I am.
This is a fact.
Yeah, it's like a magnifying glass.
One of the other stories I found is it's from Reddit, from the Missing 411 forum. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Missing 411 documentary. And it's about how like hundrds of people go missing in national forest every year, and it never gets investigated. They're just like, they're gone.
Well, the forest has them now. So if you ever want to, like, I guess murder someone, just push them into a forest.
Yeah, just like drive someone in the middle of a national forest and leave them there. But there's like this whole documentary dedicated to it, and it's anywhere from maybe it's a serial killer, maybe it's aliens, maybe it's Bigfoot, and so
maybe it's dumb lost hikers.
Exactly, maybe it's
dying in the wilderness.
But the thing is, you would eventually find a body though,
right?
Because they have people out there, just tourists walking around the forest, and then they also, for like the first week, they're hardcore searching for these people. So, yeah, it's mysterious. And one of them is a case. It's not like a missing case, but it's a story about an event that took place at the Lincoln National Forest.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And let me look through. I've got a couple more here. Print them off. Ooh, I'll just tell the one about Shit Hill. It's in Arkansas.
Shit Hill.
Okay. This is my friend. If I'm saying it correctly, Morgan can correct me later if I'm incorrect in any of these details. But it's a local urban legend in like the Hazen, Carlisle area, according to Morgan. Again, if I'm remembering this correctly. If not, oh well. But it's I'll have to find it. But it's in like the Carlisle, Hazen area of Arkansas. If you haven't been there, there's like nothing there. Like Hazen is home to the only traffic light in the entire county. That's how small town it is. Like the whole county, not just Hazen. And it's an instruction where it's like useless. There's no point. People
so in the county, that city's considered a big city because it has a stoplight.
Yeah, everything closes at 4 p.m. Or 5, I guess, to be fair. And anyways, just very small town. All the buildings are super old. Everyone knows each other. It's like been the same families there for generations. So, Arkansas. Typical Arkansas. Yeah, typical Arkansas.
Tossing that shade.
Yeah. No, it's actually a cool place. It's really chill. But Morgan's family is there. But she was telling me one day she could have made the whole thing up. Either way, now it's urban legend, so now it exists. So there's this hill, and we drove over it. There's this hill, if you're just driving down, it's very like back roads, where it's like going like this, and then it just sinks, and then goes. It's like fairly dramatic.
Super deep drop.
Yeah. You can see Dylan, but he's...
like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. And so if you... so everyone that like lives in that area, when they drive it over that area, they know to like slow down, and because they're about to be like, whoop. But anyone that doesn't know is like hits it too fast, and it's like, oh shit, and like lands on the road.
I get it.
Yeah.
Shit Hill.
Shit Hill. And so that's where the name came from. And she was just like, you want to go to Shit Hill? And I was like, what? And she was just like, well, let's go. And it was just on the way to a location we were driving to. And so she just like revs the engine, and we go fast as shit. And then we like literally catch air in the car. In her like old car, and then like kind of land a little hard, and she was like, yeah, and I was like, I don't like that. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? And she's like, that's Shit Hill, because everyone's like, oh shit. And I was like, I see that. Anyways, the story that goes with that, it's a very like woman in white type story. The story is that a woman in like the Hazen, Carlisle area had like, it's probably like all urban legends, it was like in the 50s or something.
Before you could actually document any proof.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. This woman basically is like running away from her abusive husband, and she has her baby in the car. And so she's the baby's probably just flopping around in the back seat because it's the 50s and there aren't car seats. So she's just like hauling ass,
holding the baby while you're smoking and driving.
Smoking, driving, escaping her abusive husband. So that's our cats in the back running around. They have the zoom in.
They chose now to be wild.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, so she's just like hauling ass, trying to get away from her abusive husband, and he's coming after her in a truck. She's in her little car, and so she goes over Shit Hill way too hard and way too fast, and just her car just basically turns, spins out of control, flips, crashes, and she dies, but the baby lives. And so the legend is, if you go out to Shit Hill, and around spooky nights like Friday 13th or Halloween or whatever, if you go out there and you say, Miss, I have your baby, she'll appear and attack you.
Full of Zach Baggins. Taunt the ghosts.
Yeah. And so that's the legend of Shit Hill.
Wow.
It's like a Bloody Mary type, like taunting the specter.
Yeah.
El Paso has like
fuck
similar.
that.
No.
I never to this day have done Bloody Mary. I sure as hell I'm not gonna do something where it's like already dangerous to be doing it in the first place.
Okay. But El Paso has like a similar. El Paso has a Gravity Hill urban legend. I think There's this one show I used to like that did a bunch of debunking of urban legends, but the one in El Paso is typical Gravity Hill urban legend. There's a school bus, and there's a train track, and the school bus stalled on the train track, got hit by a train, and all the kids died. And so the urban legend is that if you take your car to these train tracks and you put a bunch of like baby powder on the back end of your car, and you get out of your car, you'll see your car get like move off of the train tracks.
Yeah.
And then there's supposedly like little child handprints in the baby powder, like they push your car so you wouldn't die, basically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's a relatively common urban legend because I've heard it told in other areas. Me and a bunch of friends tried to go on like an epic adventure one night to try and find it, and we never found it.
Aww.
Just drive around.
None of us even knew where it was.
Trunk
We were
full of
just
baby
like,
powder.
let's just drive towards railroad tracks, see if there's signage or something.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't. That wasn't.
It's just signs like baby ghost.
Baby goes this way. That wasn't my next story, but it was related.
Yeah.
I have to take my mask off because I have to put my glasses
Ice.
on.
Huh? You want ice?
So I can see him.
Sure.
Alright, let me see. Alright, so the next story is
It's good.
it's the one off of Reddit from the missing 411. It was written by, here you go. The user is areyouguysOn_email. That's the person's name who posted this. And I'm just going to go ahead and read what it says verbatim so nothing gets missed.
Thank you.
So, my experience in the Lincoln National Forest in the mid-90s. So my grandparents owned a trailer near Sacramento, New Mexico in the Lincoln National Forest in the mid-90s, and my mother, 2 siblings, and I visited on a weekend sometime during that era. I had 2 teenage male cousins that were also visiting the same weekend. While there, my 2 cousins offered to take my mother, siblings, and I on a hike. We left shortly after sunrise, our first morning of the trip. The first couple hours of the hike were normal enough, nothing worth noting. However, as the day wore on, I remember my mother became worried that we were getting lost. She expressed her concern to my 2 cousins who were leading us. I remember them assuring us they knew where they were, and we continued on. They wanted to take a different return route because they wanted to show us a river, which is a rare thing for folks from southern New Mexico, also El Paso, because water is non-existent in the desert. But as we kept going, there was no river in sight, and my mother became convinced that we were lost. My cousins assured us once again that we were not lost, and told us about a road a short distance away that we could wait at while they went back to my grandparents' trailer to get a vehicle to give us a ride back in. Once we reached the road, my cousins and my family split up. We literally waited for hours without a single sign of my cousins or any other sign of human life for that matter. None of us was carrying a watch, and this was, obviously, before cell phones, so we were stranded. Eventually, a red SUV-type vehicle, I don't recall the make or model, came around the mountain. We were partially relieved, but also somewhat apprehensive because we didn't recognize the vehicle. The vehicle slowed down when it came closer to us without us having to flag it down. We didn't recognize the driver, but he rolled down the window and asked us if everything was okay. When my mother walked closer to the window to speak to him, she noticed a middle-aged woman in the front seat, whom she didn't recognize, and, to her surprise, my 2 cousins in the back seat. My mom ignored the man's question and immediately started asking my 2 cousins where they had been. She told them we were hungry and tired and wanted to go back to my grandparents. Amidst her concern, they both ignored my mom. They just stared blankly ahead and remained silent. Initially, my mom thought they were joking, but the more she tried to get a word out of them, the more awkward the situation became. They remained completely silent and expressionless, staring straight ahead throughout the entire conversation. At this point, I remember my mother becoming visibly alarmed. The man and woman then asked us again if we needed help. They were both extremely friendly and never stopped smiling. My mother, visibly shaken, declined their offer for help and motioned all of us to return to the side of the road. As we walked away, the man said, "Be careful, it's easy to disappear out here," and sped off. Literally moments later, we noticed my grandpa's van turn a corner going the opposite direction as the red SUV. Needless to say, we were immensely relieved. My grandpa stopped the vehicle right next to us. sorry. And we walked around to get in. When the door opened, we noticed my 2 cousins were in the back seat. My mom then started shouting a mixture of anger and amusement, exclaiming what a mean prank that was. My siblings and I joined in. However, my cousins then said they had no idea what we were talking about. They said they had spent all day walking to the trailer, and as soon as they got there, hopped in the van with my grandpa to come pick us up. My grandpa and cousins looked shocked at our accusations, and it eventually turned into a very serious discussion, with everyone recalling their exact actions along with a timeline of events. Even after all these years, my cousins swear they were telling the truth. I'm interested to hear anyone's thoughts on my experience, and there's a bunch of comments on the story. But, that's spooky.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
That's terrifying. And, that just really enforces to me that, the whole missing 411 situation is supernatural. It's not just, a serial killer. Maybe there is one or two out there. But I think a lot of it, the national forests are so isolated that, there could be anything in there. Bigfoot, there could be aliens just trying to pick folks up.
Problem.
So yeah. I have 2 comments on that. One, have you ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something like that? It's the name of the movie.
I know it's a classic, but I unfortunately have not seen it.
Literally the scariest alien-related movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's fucking amazing. And it also takes place in a forest canyon town, in the middle of fucking nowhere. Mm-hmm. Where people get abducted and appear days later, and they're just different. Mm-hmm. Also, there is literally a killer in the California mountains, probably still to this day.
Oh, your mom was talking about.
Taylor and I went to visit my mom just recently, and there had been another guy that he was I think he had picked up his kids or something like that.
He had 2 little girls.
Yep.
And little girls lived, didn't they?
Yep.
He was just was he missing or just dead?
I don't remember. I think they had driven up to the mountains and he was taking them camping or something like that, and he had been shot and killed.
The little girls were alive.
Did the kids know anything? Did they see anything?
I don't know based on the story that I was told. Maybe, possibly, probably actually, but
we might do a podcast in the future about missing 411 because that whole thing is insane. We'll watch the documentary and talk about it.
His mom, she hikes everywhere constantly. She knows that whole area the back of her hand, and she's just I'm not hiking that area
Never
at all. Yeah, she's until they
again.
catch that dude or something.
Yeah, because it had been a year and a half where disappearances had been happening in those mountains, and they think that it might be an actual serial killer that's in there, or just frequents that area to kill people.
That's wild.
It could be several isolated incidents, but that seems unlikely at this point.
I know if you look into the UFO sightings and you compare them side by side by Bigfoot sightings, they all kind of peak at the same time in the same places. And so I have a wild theory. If you talk about when I think I've already told you guys my wild theory, but when abductions are talked about and stuff like that, a lot of the accounts that people come back with is forced male ejaculation during their probing. And so I said that as sciencey as possible.
Oh my god.
And you can't not chuckle at that.
Yeah. Sorry.
But my theory is that Bigfoot is a alien-human crossbreed. Aliens have been taking male DNA and and then just making Bigfoots out of it, and then they keep dropping them in our forest to see how well they can survive in the environment. Yeah. See if they can survive in the environment. Maybe they're planning on taking over, and they're trying to see if they can cross our species.
Are aliens furry then?
Yeah, that must be the case because we're not.
Well, we're technically ape-ish, so maybe all the hair's coming from us.
It's not a part of our current DNA structure, though. Hair is, but not to the point that.
I was when they do alien, I just imagined the traditional alien with the very round, smooth green head coming to
Yes.
Oh, I'm a firm believer in the Greys.
I found this really fun story about
The tall, slender, diamond-eyed Greys.
Diamond?
Diamond-eyed. Yeah,
Oh,
they have like
yeah.
the wide, like long slit eyes.
Oh, I just imagine him cuter, like being like, whoop, and then having
Like
bright
like the Toy
green
Story LGMs.
yeah, that's
Three
more,
eyes and
like
the
cutie.
claw.
Yeah.
At first, I found this really exciting story about a crash in Lincoln National Forest, and
Oh,
I
shit,
found
I
like
can't
an
drink
alien
that
and
mascot.
everything.
Oh, the gray eyes.
But
That's more what...
it was a fake story, and this picture from the story is actually from an episode of the X-Files. So I got
False.
really disappointed when I read
Show
that.
on the
Fucking pasta.
Here's
That's the one.
the picture.
I
the
recognize
story.
it. I recognize it.
And that's, I was
I
like,
wonder-
oh, this story's so cool. And at the very end, it was like, but this has been proven to not be true. And I was like, what a waste.
Fucking do that at the
the alien
beginning.
story's not real? What do you mean?
I had him looking for real aliens.
Yeah, you're like, I want only the real stories.
You'll get to my like IRL UFO story here in a minute.
Oh yeah, once we get up in there. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to read next. Sure, this one's on top, so why not? There. Okay.
Make it back in character.
Put your mask back on.
There you go. Okay.
I'm ready.
Canary's back in the house.
There you go. Now we're ready. Okay, this one is called The Whispers. I found it on the internet.
I don't like the sound of this already.
Yeah. Okay, and this is like just a collection of stories. I tried to find the original like real author so I could give everyone like proper credit, but I couldn't because it was like a fake long username. So if this is you,
Let us
I picked
know.
it. Yeah, tell us, and then we'll credit you.
Million claims show up
Yeah,
in
yeah.
your inbox. Like that was
I
my
wish
story.
a million.
Right? I wish we have a million people
We had
listening.
a
That'd be
million
great.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it'll be like 2 people claiming it. Or
Jocelyn probably.
One of them
or
is
just
me.
Jocelyn or just like Rachel commenting.
That was me.
Yeah. Okay, this one's called The Whispers. I'm a little drunk, so that's not part of the story. I'm just
Forgive
saying.
us.
Yeah. This is, we're not
Feeling
sponsored,
it.
but
Yes, this is
The other way.
this
There you go.
delicious Rocktown gin,
Can you see it? Can you see it?
locally brewed here in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Distilled.
Just still listen.
whatever.
It's a liquor.
Listen, first of all,
Liquor.
drinking. Second of all,
Fuck you.
That's literally. It's like how I'll burn in hell. Okay.
I will.
the cats are getting in the mood.
Yeah. Okay. The Whispers by whoever. This is a story I do not often tell. I promise sincerely that this has scarred me for life, and although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I've heard and natural explanations for what I've heard, they remain unsatisfactory. I'm slurring. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swear to my mother I heard voices. They sounded evil, and they weren't familiar, so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. She figured they were just bumps in the night and typical kid's nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that, and they sounded different from one another, the way people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from the whispers that I wouldn't sleep in my mom's bed. That I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside her bedroom door for my late night tinkles.
Why?
I
Why
just want to know how that's prevalent
This
to the
isn't.
story.
This got infinitely less spooky
just really
when,
wanted to use
when
the
they used the word
word
tinkles.
I didn't proofread these at all. I should have. Actually, I'm glad I didn't. This is amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
this is better. I'd rather you didn't.
Yeah.
These are genuine laughs now.
I should add at this point that when walking out into the hall to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into the living room on the first floor, as my mom's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night around Christmas, I woke and felt the need to relieve myself. Tinkles.
To tinkle.
This is not scary anymore. I walked up from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look!" And to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, it was only a few days before Christmas, and I knew what the light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house and know I was being a good boy? This is a boy. I'm sorry. I was so excited I began walking down the stairs to greet him. Picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness into my living room. That's when I heard him, a very strong masculine voice. Different from the first, not at all like my father's. Not to say he isn't masculine, it was just distinctly different. I should have proofread this. Oh, okay, sorry. It said, stop, right now, go back up those stairs. I listened, turned around, and what happened next I'm not sure I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we woke in the morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs. Some broken for what seemed like a forceful tear. Laying in a single pile, the dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we'd become the victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing, and then I saw it, and I kept quiet about it because I was so afraid I could not force words out of my mouth. There on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were 3 indentions where the finish of the wood had been worn, almost as if in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That's what that bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night, if it was anything at all, but I can tell you the reality was that something had physically acted upon 2 things in my house near the bottom of the stairwell. After this, I never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the man that had stopped me from going down those stairs. This happened when I was 7. I'm 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I'm still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells.
Wow, like as goofy as it got for a moment, that's actually like chills.
Yeah.
Yes, chills. My next one, I have not proofread this one, so apologies if it's a little choppy.
No, that's the best. That makes it so much better. I'm so glad that we experienced tinkles during that.
But it's commonly referred to as like the Horizon Monster, and Horizon City is a smaller city just outside the El Paso city limits, but still inside El Paso County.
Oh, it's like the Jersey Devil kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of. But like it's a Bigfoot creature.
I was like, isn't the Jersey Devil a murderer?
I know it eats animals.
Yeah, there's different things, different myths about the Jersey Devil, but like it's a location specific cryptid. Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
So this is going to be a direct read from an article that was featured in the El Paso Times. The writer's name was Adriana M. Chavez, and so this is the story. More than 2 years ago, Cecilia Montañez. I apologize. I probably butchered that.
Say your last name for them really quick.
Magallanes.
Yeah.
Probably the only Spanish word I can properly say is my name. Saw the creature for the first time. Again, more than 2 years ago, Cecilia saw the creature for the first time. More than 7 feet tall, with faded dark brown fur, and standing in the desert near East Lake Boulevard and Darrington Road. I'm not familiar with these areas. I never spent much time in Horizon, so... I saw a big gorilla-like thing walking toward the desert, Montañez said. Montañez says she and other Horizon City residents have witnessed a large Bigfoot-type creature lurking in the desert, usually near East Lake and near Lake El Paso. While others, including law enforcement officials, believe the sightings are part of a hoax, Montañez said that what she and other people have witnessed is true. The legend of the monster goes back to the early 1970s, but no actual evidence has been found, according to many longtime Horizon City residents. Montañez, a retired secretary, moved from East El Paso to Horizon City 3 years ago. She said she has seen the creature on 2 occasions, the last sighting taking place near her home last October. I apologize for not having the date when this article came out, so I can't be more specific. Montañez said that after the first sighting, she remembered an article that ran in the September 20th, 1975 edition of the El Paso Times. The article reported that 3 teenagers saw a gorilla-like creature near their Horizon City golf course. Bill Rutherford, a former deputy with the El Paso County Sheriff's Department, said in the article that he did see a track, but that it appeared to have been dug. Quote, someone had to have made those tracks, Rutherford said in a recent phone interview. Quote, there's a lot of people that were very upset, but it never bothered me. I didn't think it was for real, end quote. Rutherford was a deputy until 1979, and in 1988 became Horizon City's first police chief. He retired after 10 years and remembers that although he didn't believe the teens' stories, he felt obligated to investigate. That's a good cop. Quote, I was a deputy sheriff, so I was regulated to do something, end quote, Rutherford said. I never saw it. I thought it was a hoax. Horizon City Police Chief Tony Aguilar has been the town's chief for about 2 years and said he doesn't recall any reports of Bigfoot sightings. But we've had reports before of meteorites landing in the desert, but nothing about Bigfoots, Aguilar said. Aguilar remembered hearing about a hermit who may have lived in the mountains near Horizon City in the early 1970s. He had long hair and he was unshaven, Aguilar recalled. A lot of hunters at one point found a little cave and found old cans, and like he had been living off the land. Although Montañez maintains the creatures live in caverns that exist underneath Horizon City, Phil Goodell, a geology professor at the University of Texas at El Paso, said no such caverns exist. Quote, large desert expanses can't have caverns, end quote, Goodell said. You have to have limestone rock, like Carlsbad Caverns does. Montañez said she got some of her information on the creature from at least one law enforcement official who has investigated the creature's sightings and developed a profile. I like that they developed a profile for a Bigfoot. Like it's a serial killer or something. He said the mothers go out to find food and that they nurse their young just like we do. Aguilar said if anyone reported seeing the creature to police, quote, we would look into it and take it seriously with whatever information we had to work on, end quote. Montañez described the creatures as having red glowing eyes like cats. She said as being vegetarians. Since El Paso is mostly desert with no vegetation, Montañez said the creatures suck the blood out of small animals and eat their organs. That is not a vegetarian.
Yeah, that sounds like the opposite of vegetarian.
Irene Scanlon, 57, said she heard about sightings of the creature a while ago, but has never seen them. It sounds like they're trying to make it seem like a chupacabra, Scanlon said. I don't believe it at all. I think it's just someone trying to get publicity. But Montañez said she's not trying to seek publicity and would like to see Horizon City become a tourist attraction like Roswell, which is known for being the supposed site of a U.S. supposed.
It is the site.
It is a site
Alleged.
of a UFO crash in 1947.
Did they admit that there's like record?
Yeah, there's military record. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, no.
Roswell nowadays is just like it's an experimental like aircraft test site, right? Which is their cover, but like
for aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
Aliens are real.
Quote, my daughter didn't believe it either, but when she saw it, she changed her story, Montañez said. They really exist. Montañez has told of her experience to friends and family, including 2 Socorro High School varsity baseball players. I've been looking for them around the desert, said Jorge de la Fuente, 16, a junior at Socorro High, who has been watching for the creature along with his friend Anthony Paez, 15, a sophomore at Socorro. I just want to see them. I have to see one to believe it. Real quick, if you know either of these individuals, because a lot of people I know are from El Paso, like have them contact us, because if they have found anything in the El Paso desert,
we want to do a video.
That'd be great.
Dedicated
so again,
to aliens.
Those names are Jorge de la Fuente. At the time of this article, he was a junior at Socorro High, and Anthony Paez, at the time, was a sophomore at
Holler at your
Socorro.
boys.
So yeah, let us know, because that'd be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the Horizon Bigfoot sighting.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Here, let me go ahead and, oh babe, can we do some movie magic stuff where I'm like this and my phone appears in my hand?
Yeah.
Look at that!
Magic!
Okay. Now, Ashton was nice enough to share a story with me. I was really excited to get it. And
whenever we get merch going.
Next. Sorry.
oh, of course,
Okay.
yeah. After, and I was like, it was kind of traumatic. So I was like, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you, but thank you for this fucking rad story.
Right?
It's amazing. Let's see here. Boop.
whenever we get merch going, maybe we'll give her a thank you.
Yeah.
A thank you gift for submitting a story.
For sharing your story.
Yeah.
Okay, let me...
Because I know that when it comes to paranormal things, not just UFO, but a lot of more ghost-like events do tend to get really personal. They do are a little bit more terrifying, honestly.
Oh, mine's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot to speak up about these kinds of experiences, and so don't ever be afraid to talk about.
Yeah, I think Dylan will just let you read yours because it happened to you.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's told from my point of view anyway. So.
Yeah, okay, the story again is from Ashton. She was very sweet to share the story with us. So she says, this is from her point of view, obviously. When I was in 9th grade, my parents bought a house that was 2 doors down from the one I grew up in to make a rent house. The tenants that lived there before were severe drug addicts. There was abuse against children, and they always ended up in a rut and getting kicked out. So, needless to say, there was some remodeling that needed to be done to the home. We finished the house in a few weeks, but when you walk into the home, you would feel cold. Hairs in the back of your neck would stand up, and there was an overwhelming feeling of being watched inside the home. When the sun went down, it would get worse. Brooms would fall over. From across the room, you could see shadows out of the corners of your eyes shift. With all the people working, being in one room, we all felt this, but no one said anything for the thought that maybe we were all just like seeing things or being weird. Well, one night, a friend of mine and I decided it would be a good idea to stay the night over there. It had, electricity and water. We thought it would be fun, like kind of night to ourselves in the house. The entire time I was in the house, my hair was on end and I felt so much anxiety, but wrote it off. My friend fell asleep before me and I couldn't sleep. I stayed up, back to the wall playing solitaire with some playing cards we brought with us. To explain the layout of the house, it's a giant circle. You walk into the front door, and directly in front of the hallway to the bedroom, and to the right is the living room, with a wall blocking the view into the hallway. There was a doorway on the other side of the living room that led into the kitchen, and an old wooden door that leads to the garage. I have myself pressed against the far right corner of the living room, the hallway blocked from sight, but can clearly see into the kitchen and into the garage. We had left the bathroom light on in the bathroom, which went off of the hallway so we could still see, and a light on the far end of the kitchen. So they wouldn't be sitting in the dark. I would do the same thing.
Right.
There was nothing in the house. Furniture-wise at all. The only other thing in the house besides the blankets we brought and a few card games was a single broom in the hallway leaning against the wall. I happened to look upwards towards the front of the house and see the shadow of the broom because of the bathroom light. And then I noticed another shadow. It was a small, rectangular shadow that looked like it was leaning against the opposite wall. I stood there staring at the shadow because I knew nothing was in that hallway except the broom. I was so afraid my body went cold and I couldn't move. Suddenly, I felt like something was watching me from the kitchen, particularly in the same direction as the garage door. I felt it so hard I just knew that if I turned my head, I would see something there. I turn and look, and my eyes lock with a spot about 6 feet up from the floor, and I knew something was there. I couldn't see anything in the door, in the kitchen, or anywhere, but I knew it was there. At this point, every hair in my body was on end, and goose flesh sprouted down my arms. My friend was still soundly asleep on the floor. I turned to wake her, and the shadow in the hallway had moved from its original spot. I could no longer see the shadow of the broom. Suddenly, the broom fell, and the shadow was gone. I screamed and scared the hell out of my friend. She asked if I was okay, and wanting her not to be afraid, I said yes. I was fine, and I had just seen a spider. She told me to shut up and went back to sleep. Ashton, your friend is not nice.
Right?
Yeah. I'm sure she's actually nice, but yeah. Let me see. Once I knew she was out, I wiggled myself in between her and the wall. Call me a shitty friend, but she didn't believe it. And I just heard a broom fall over for no reason and seen a shadow dart away. It took forever, but I finally went to sleep. If she's gonna tell you to shut up, then I feel like you have a right to use her as a human shield, Ashton. So, that's fair. I finally went to sleep. I'll never forget the dream I had. I was asleep for a while. I can't remember the dreams I had before this one, but suddenly I was lying on my side in the dream, and there was just this black figure, like a smoke-like in appearance on the outer edges. There were wisps of black shadows. And then suddenly there was a hand. It was ghostly white. I could see the blue and purple veins in the fingers, and the nails were long. The hand slowly reached towards me and I thought my heart was going to stop. In the dream, I reached up and grabbed the hand just before it touched my face and suddenly heard screaming. I woke up to my hand wrapped in a death grip around my friend's arm. I had been shaking in my sleep, and my friend, she had been trying to wake me up. She was shaking my shoulder when I grabbed her arm. I was so freaked out, I forced her to leave with me at 3 a.m. and walk across the neighbor's yard back to our house. We snuck back through my bedroom window, and we didn't really talk about what had happened. Fast forward to the following weeks, nearly every night I would have the same dream of black hands reaching out to my covers and wrapping around my neck, choking me. I would wake up screaming and thrashing, unable to sleep after. Finally, my mom asked my sister and I one day, had we ever felt weird inside the rent house? We both exploded about our different experiences and what we saw, but I held back the story of that night and the nightmares I had after that. Something just told me I shouldn't tell her. She contacted her friend, who was an honest-to-God psychic, which I would love to have on our show.
Yes.
And he put her in touch with a local woman to come bless the house. I didn't want to be there for the blessing. I was later told that when the woman walked into the house, she instantly began with the sage and candles, mumbling about the dark energy she could feel in the home. When she got to the garage door, she went pale, opened the door, and started screaming into the garage for the demon in the corner to get the hell out and leave this home in peace. To get out of here, and this is a place of positivity. Sorry. She later confirmed that there had been a similar spirit in my home. She blessed my family, and then came back to the house to bless me. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as soon as she did. From that point on, there were no nightmares, and the house seemed to fill with more light, and all the bad juju vibes had vanished. We still get the house blessed, and I currently live there now, actually.
Whoa!
Wow. I wouldn't do that.
I was gonna ask if you still
Cotton.
have the house, like if your family still owns the house, but you're
Yeah.
not living there.
She lives in
That's
it.
wild.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I actually currently live there now. When my dogs begin to growl and scratch at the garage door again, I know it's time for another blessing. We've only needed 2 since I've lived here. You're brave, Ashton.
Only 2.
Yeah, only 2.
That's
Holy
terrifying.
shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is nuts.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes,
Ashton.
thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Dylan, do you want to read your story?
Sure. Here I am. I was on the phone with my friend Alyssa late one night, talking about a party she was going to have soon, as the story begins. I hung up the phone at about 12:43 a.m. I remember watching an episode of Robot Chicken on Adult Swim just before deciding to go to bed. I turned off the TV and looked at my phone, and my clock said 12:57 a.m. I laid flat on my back and tried to go to sleep. It felt like some decent time had passed as I was slipping into what felt like a dream. I could see myself walking in my grandfather's house from his living room to his kitchen. I was almost stumbling. I placed my hand on the kitchen counter to balance myself as I noticed my hand was old and wrinkled. I was seeing through my grandfather's eyes. I looked into the backyard and saw my Nana hanging laundry on the clothesline. It was sunny out, and there were flowers in full bloom. I would realize later that how odd this is, not only because it was the middle of the night, but also it was winter and there was still 6 inches of snow on the ground. I made my way into the kitchen and into his family room to the left. I felt myself getting weak as I heard a whisper from where I'd just been, in the kitchen area-ish. I turned as I began to faint and fall flat onto my back. As I blinked my eyes and looked back towards the kitchen, I saw a silhouette of a torso standing in the doorway. There was nothing below the waist, and the head almost looked hooded. It floated and shifted in the doorway. As soon as I looked directly at it, the head of the being seemed to snap and stare directly back at me. The moment it did, my whole body tensed up, my eyes clamped shut, my teeth grinded, and I clenched my fist as hard as I could. All I could hear was the most awful, low, angry growl I had ever heard in my life. It sounded like it was being shouted into both of my ears at the same time. I tried to push back the force that was taking hold of my body with anything I could think of. I tried to focus, and I shouted back in my own mind, "Get out, get out, get out!" As soon as I said it the 3rd time, it all vanished, and I was in control of my own body again. Only this time, I was back in my room, still laying flat on my back in bed. The whole experience felt like it took an eternity. I hurried to grab my phone so that I could call someone to help ground myself. It was then that I glanced at the clock in the corner of the screen. It was 10:59. Only 2 minutes had passed.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh,
I called my grandfather the next day.
I was gonna say, was he okay?
Yes, he's fine. He's still fine to this day.
Oh, okay.
I called him the next day. I said, "Hey, Papa," I call my grandfather Papa. I was like, "Hey, Papa, I had a really strange dream last night. I won't really get into the details. I want to know that you're okay." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Me and Barb are just getting ready. We're packing. We're getting ready to go to Florida." Because it was beginning of winter and they're snowbirds, so they fly south.
They fly south in the winter, yeah.
So yeah, see, Barb and I are just getting ready to go to Florida. Why? What's up? Was it a scary dream? I said, "Yeah, Papa, I was really scared. I had to be sure that you were okay." He goes, "Oh, well, yeah, I appreciate you calling. Thanks for checking on me."
Aww,
that's crazy.
And he's just a sweet old man.
I was like, your grandpa's fucking adorable.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love my grandfather. But yeah, so he's still fine.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Spoop.
Mm-hmm.
Spoop. And then movie magic make Dylan disappear.
Oh, he's gone. Oh, sorry. There you go.
But
do it again.
Whoa! He's gone.
Yeah, so.
Well, thank you for listening and or watching to the No Pants podcast. I am Taylor.
I'm Sammy. And then we'll see y'all next month for another episode. Bye.
Bye.
Huh.